me. I am for the church. I count myself in this. I also did this. I also walked out of the path of life. I also walked out of the path of righteousness. I also saw things this way. So I'm not against the church, but the church has taken on the voice of the serpent in the earth. Just like Israel took on the voice of the serpent in the earth. They were supposed to be a nation of kings and priests. Jesus said you're a city on a hill, but if the city lost its flavor, how can it salt the earth? He was talking about Israel. Well, what were they supposed to be a nation of kings and priests doing? Preaching about the goodness of God towards them. Preaching about God's righteousness towards them to save them from sin and death. Preaching about how God isn't judging them for their sin, but that God will come and conquer their sin. They didn't do it. And now the church, who conveniently likes to blast the Jewish people for crucifying their Messiah, how could they do that? Once again, they have now done the same thing. They have not become a nation of kings and priests. They are not preaching about God's righteousness toward people. They are not preaching about the beauty God beholds in all people. They are not preaching about God's faithfulness to people. They are preaching the same word of the serpent. You are not, but you can become. You don't have any money? Well, then you must not be a son. But if you can give some money in church, then you can become a son, because then we can see your great financial prosperity.
And accusing of sin, that they would forever be in their sin.
Right. And that's what the accusation of sin would be. You're not, when you accuse somebody of sin, that's the evidence. But underneath it is communicating a silent word to the heart. You're not the God kind.
Yes. Yes.
You're not. That will always subvert the soul of a human being. Why do you think so many people reject the church? They hear they're not. The only people that come to God under that message are people that are broken in spirit before the church even got to them. Do you see what I'm saying? They're already poor in spirit. They're already, they've already given up. Anything. It's like, whatever. I see that I'm dead already.
The most alluring thing of the Bible, when I first started reading scriptures, was reading the Old Testament and seeing the patriarchs, all of the Old Testament prophets, and David, just all of the prophets back there who had so many failures, like moral failures. But you could see how God loved and worked through these very people. Not perfect people, people who struggled in life. God chose them and chose to work through them.
Yeah.
And it was like, I like this God, and I know that He sees something in me, in these people. I can correlate with these people.
Yeah.
In that regard.
Yeah, which is beautiful. That's identifying with Jesus, actually. The patriarchs are actually communicating the same thing. You identifying with them as they identify with the Spirit of the Son.
Mm-hmm.
They're identifying, each one of them, with an aspect of the Spirit of the Son in them. And God is actually declaring a testimony about man through them. Him and them doing things together. And it's no accident, like Mo said, that they all had moral failures. Well, how come that didn't bother God? And when I say bother, I don't mean that He didn't care that they were in bondage to something that was bringing forth the fruit of death in them. I mean, how come that didn't change God's view of them?
He didn't throw them away.
Right. Why not?
Doesn't know it's there.
Right. It's like, I preached this a long time ago, but it's like, we've preached all these things that are true. Justification is true. Justified through faith, by faith is true. The righteousness of faith is true. We preach these things, the phrases that are true, but then the words we've used to describe them are filled with half-truths. And that's just like if you preach grace and then mix it in with the law, it negates the grace. So if we preach these things that are true with half-truths and the other half from the carnal mind, we're neutering a lot of the power. We might get excited because we see something there in our heart. But then we'll never find that giving birth to the tree of life out of us. Right? Well, we'll labor all the time still. Why isn't this working? Why don't I see peace and love and joy and et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
There's a big but